Change my shirt.
No, you're fine.
You sure?
No, I'm not sure.
As you're jumping on, hi everybody, my name's Kayla. Landon and I are both here. We'll be facilitating today's meeting. As a reminder, as you're jumping on, please do hit that mute button so we get to kind of keep away from a lot of that background noise. But I appreciate all of you being on the call. We're going to take another minute or two to let everybody else jump on the call. Then we've got a full agenda together for the next hour. We are recording this meeting just so that we can be able to share it as needed with other folks who aren't able to make this time, but it's great to see all of you here for our monthly all-call regional action plan meeting. I think we've got folks represented from each of our regions, which is wonderful and will kind of allow a robust conversation. Again, hopefully you received the agenda and are on our ongoing mailing list. If you're not, now's your time to let me know so that we can put you on that ongoing email list. Please do toss your name into the chat and your email. You can send it in a private message to me. But before we get started, I want to provide the opportunity for everyone to introduce themselves. So rather than going around the Zoom, what I'll have all of us do is please put your name and the organization that you're with, or if you're kind of a resident of a neighborhood, you can say what neighborhood you live in the chat, please, just to share it with all of us so that we all are having the opportunity to get acquainted with each other. Awesome. And we'll get started in just another minute. Wonderful. And it's great to see all of you on this call. And we hope that we'll be able to get to every component of this agenda together. Wonderful. Thank you, everybody. Wonderful. All righty. To get us started, again, for those of you who are just jumping on, please do put your name, organization that you're with in the chat, just so that everybody's getting the opportunity to get acquainted with each other, even if it's just in the chat, as well as anything kind of about if you're a resident of a particular neighborhood. For example, I see some East Side residents on here. I see some Upper State residents. I see some waterfront residents and business owners. So do toss your name and your organization into the chat. And to kick us off, I want to hand it over to Chris Clark. Thank you so much, Chris, for being willing to present. As all of you know, the city has created links through which to report if an individual is in need. You can go online and you can report so that that individual is met with services and care. There's also a link to report encampments. And so Chris, if I can turn it over to you, I think we might need to make you co-host so you can share your screen. So Landon, if you're able to do that, then Chris can share his screen and walk us through some of that data. I'm interested to see kind of what this will look like, because it's been a minute since we've had a data presentation together in this new wrap structure. Also, it's cool to see Barbara on this call in a different office than she has been before. Barbara has been able to take a role with the city. So it's great to have you on this call, as well as great to have everyone here. So Chris, if you're able to, you can get started.
Yes, thank you, Kayla. I'm going to go ahead and throw the reporting link down in the chat as well. We actually have a new link that will take you to both the encampment link, the individual need reporting link, and also a link for reporting illegal dumping, shopping carts, that sort of thing. So they're all going to be located at that same one link I just put in the chat. And then I will go ahead and share my screen here, screen number 2. Share. All right. So I'm just gonna dive right into it, but I think first I'll actually go ahead and show you guys that reporting link that I just posted and just walk everybody through it a little bit. So you go to that link I put in the chat, and it'll take you to this landing page where you can choose to either report an encampment. So this is going to be something like a more permanent location that someone has, has a tent or tarps or cooking facilities, something like that, that needs to be addressed with outreach, needs cleanup, something like that. An individual in need report, that is going to be more specifically for just someone that you have a concern about, that you think is in need of outreach services. And then this last one down here, report illegal dumping in shopping carts. That's going to be for any just kind of trash litter, bulky items that have been left out on the street, shopping carts. That's what that link is going to be. I'll go ahead and jump into a encampment link report. We have a lot of information on this front landing page. We are going to be shifting in the next month or two to a little bit of a cleaner reporting form, but this is what we're using and have been using. And it's pretty straightforward, just gonna follow each field as it goes. You're gonna tell us the kind of place that this is located. Is it on the freeway? Is it in a creek? Is it on the beach? On the waterfront? Is it on State Street? Just kind of give us an idea of where we're looking. And then, is it visible as you walk by on the sidewalk? Can you see it from a car? Is it under a bridge? Is it further off up a hillside? It just helps us locate things. But the thing that really helps us the most is you're able to move this little marker around to specifically where your issue is. And you can make the map bigger. So if we had an issue, let's say we have an encampment, it's right over here on West Beach, and I know it's right along the bike path right over here. And what's actually really cool, because this is a Google product, you can even drop down in here to Street View. And if gosh, no, it's not quite right there. It's actually right next to that palm tree. And now we know exactly where to dispatch CityNet for outreach or cleanup crews or our code enforcement, et cetera. And we want to know, is this an inhabited encampment or does it look like it's been abandoned? There's nobody there. Any other important details that might be there? Are there dogs present? Are there any safety concerns? Something like that. And then when did you observe people there? Did you see them there in the morning, afternoon, evening? Do they stay overnight? That just all helps us know when to go and try to contact people to offer services. And that's kind of overview. The individual need report is very similar, along with the other report for abandoned waste. And with that, let me come back over to our data that we collect through this system. So this is a little bit of a preview to the new system that we're moving over to. This is a ArcGIS online based system. So everything is based on maps. So we get to see things very clearly on what's going on. And here's an overview of all of our RAP districts. And each one of these little dots represents a report that's come in. And they're color coded. So we've got inhabited encampments, uninhabited encampments, individual in need, shopping carts, and any other things that come into us. And we're able to really get down into it to see exactly where things are happening, where we're seeing trends, where we get a lot of reports along freeways, along the railroad track. And ultimately, this view that you're seeing now is something that we're hoping to be on a public facing on our website, available to the public at all times. So you can get a real-time information on, what are things that are coming into us and how we're responding to those things and helping to deal with those issues. And I'm going to come down here and we've got an overview of the last 3 quarters of this fiscal year. So July to June, first quarter through fourth quarter. And these are the number of reports on this side, and these are the types of reports that we've got. So as we look over time, now we're still in the midst of fourth quarter, which may be why this is a little bit lower, but we are actually on track to have fewer reports kind of across the board over the course of this year, which is encouraging. Hopefully that means there's less to report rather than we're just receiving fewer reports. So I encourage everyone, again, if you see something, please report it. That's how we know to go out and make a difference. And then I can jump down to this next little dashboard. My map just disappeared. All right. We're still working out a few kinks on this system, and I'll have to refresh occasionally. But here I'm able to dive into each of the RAP districts to see the numbers specific to each of those. So the first one we can look at is the waterfront. I'll zoom in on it for us. Over here again, we have the number of reports, and those reports coming in by quarter of this last fiscal year. We have the status of those reports. Something that's been completed and closed in our system means that we've received the report, we've dispatched resources to it, outreach, cleanup, and then we've also, on our end, paid our contractors and closed out our report. So something that is in progress, a lot of those just mean we haven't paid the invoice yet because we're waiting for the bill. But anything that is completed and closed, fully completed and closed, things that are in progress, may be that we still have outreach, we still have cleanup scheduled, or we're just waiting on the bill. But as you can see, the number of pending items, we only have 2 things that are pending and new, which is great to have not a big queue of waiting for us to send resources out. We did recently bring on a second code enforcement officer, so we'll have 2 full-time code enforcement, Joelle and Dwight, who are on this call, who are able to very rapidly respond to these reports coming in, which is great. So again, we can see we have a decline over time of reports coming in on the waterfront, which is great. The waterfront is definitely the largest number of reports that come in. I think it's somewhere around 450 abouts for the past year. And we can jump over and look at our East Side RAP district. And you can see we had a spike in the last quarter of reports, but now that's come back down again. And we're still looking at about a month and a half. So we'll probably see it start to look more like the last couple, but we definitely had a spike of reports on the East Side. And that may be that there was a particular encampment that was very visible, and we received a lot of reports about it. We do receive multiple reports on the same camps sometimes. And then we can look at State Street. State Street, we had a lot of reports in the first couple of quarters, so over the summer, and then winter into spring, things have died down a lot. And I think we've had additional attention from the police department, and we have our ambassadors out there, which hopefully means that we have less impact going on State Street. But again, I would encourage everyone to report anything that you see. And then we have Alameda Park on here still. Not too much going on there, which is great to hear. Mainly individual in need reports, which is good. And then our Upper State Street RAP. You can see we've had very few encampment reports for this current quarter. In fact, the majority of reports coming in from there are for abandoned shopping carts. But it's great to see that we have much fewer encampment being reported, individual need reports. Doesn't look like we've gotten any so far for the last month and a half. Again, if you do see anything up in that area, please report it. We want to know if we're missing something. And as you look at these maps, if you look at these and you think, oh no, there's a lot of activity going on in this area or this area, and we're not getting those reports, please report it so that we know about it. With our 2 new code enforcement officers, we are looking to try to be much more proactive in having them out patrolling areas so that we're not as reliant on reports coming in. But again, that's 2 eyes that we have, whereas the whole community can provide lots of eyes and ears. We have a few maps here that are just kind of zoomed in again. Looking at those areas, those hotspot areas, it really paints a picture when you can see it visibly where those things are and where the reports are coming in. So along the waterfront, again, it's mainly along the freeway, in and around the parks, and along the railroad is our main areas. For the east side, things are fairly spread out. But again, freeway's a big hub, and then some areas that are mainly around creek areas and things like that. State Street, again, freeway is primary, and then State Street can be a big hub. But we do have some scattering of things around that area. Alameda Park, again, not too many things coming in, which is great. And there's always one map that doesn't want to work. Excuse me while I reload.
Logistical issues with, like he needs to switch this stuff to the side, and he needs a lot on this one.
Well, we might, oh, there we go, Upper State Street. Most of the reports coming in, we had a lot of activity in that State 154 area. Those issues have been moving to the west. Currently, there is a large encampment that we are aware of at State Street and Highway 154 interchange. That is outside the city limits. It is in the county, and the county is addressing it and working with CityNet as well to try to help the folks over there with the large amount of belongings that are there. But otherwise, we haven't been seeing recently a lot of encampment reports coming out of the Upper State Street wrap. And then I thought I'd give you guys a glance at the areas outside the wrap districts. We do have impacts outside of our rapid district areas. We do get reports throughout the county. We've even got a couple of reports that came in for England. But as you can see, along the freeway is a major area. Down at Ledbetter Beach, we get a lot of reports. Although we don't see a huge amount of activity going on there. There's kind of some day use issues and some nighttime issues, but we don't really get the big encampments like we see in a lot of the other areas of town. But again, it's a very visible area, so we get a lot of reports. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions from anybody.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Chris. Maybe first what we'll do is there's a couple questions that have popped up in the chat that maybe we can address first, and then I'll open it up to anyone else who's got questions or wants to go back to any particular data points. First question from Betsy is, what constitutes an encampment? Amount of stuff, how many folks? Chris, can you speak to that a little bit more?
Sure. So there's kind of two different definitions that we have to look at. One is the definition for our illegal camping ordinance. And that is something that, the police department can enforce. It's a citable offense to camp in the city illegally. The definition for that is somebody has to have some kind of temporary shelter. That could be a tent, could be a tarp, something like that. They could have some kind of bedding, a mattress, a hammock, something along those lines. Or they're using non-city cooking facilities. So they have their own barbecue grill. They're not using the one, in a public park. That's fine. But if they have their own barbecue grill, that kind of a thing. So any one of those things could constitute an illegal encampment that is a citable offense. As far as reporting and cleanup goes, it's really anything that's kind of a more permanent location, something that is generating trash and waste, creating some kind of a public health concern, versus just someone with their belongings that may be transitory and not staying in one place. That's kind of what we're looking at for encampments.
Great, thank you so much. Any follow-up questions to that point before I move on to any of the others in the chat?
Thank you for the answer.
Great. All right, next question. I think it links a little bit to what you were just talking about, Chris, about some areas that fall outside the city limits. But if someone uses the link to report, can they report areas outside the city? And what does that process, I think, look like for follow-up on those encampment reports if they're not in city limits? Let's say they're in county property or Caltrans. What does that look like?
Yeah, so you can report pretty much anywhere. In the current reporting form. In the newer reporting form, there's going to be a geographic restriction, more or less to the city limits, be a little bit out there. But in any report that our office receives, whether it's through the reporting link or over the phone or by email, and it's for an area outside of our jurisdiction, we forward that to the appropriate jurisdiction. So if it's in the county, we're going to send it out to the county. If it's in City of Goleta, we send it to our contact City of Goleta. If it's on Caltrans property or Union, if it's on Caltrans property, we do report that to Caltrans. They have staff specifically responsible for encampment response, just like we do. They work on they're in a larger geographic area, so their response times are considerably slower than ours. We do have our fire-prone areas, which were designated by City Council last year in specific areas where we will go in and do the cleanup simply out of the concern about fire dangers in those areas. And we work with Caltrans in those instances. And then we also have Union Pacific property. We have an agreement with Union Pacific where we clean on their property up to a certain amount and they reimburse us for it. But yes, if a report comes from outside of the city limits, we will refer it on to the appropriate agency. We do encourage people to reach out to the appropriate agency themselves first, as that's going to provide a quicker response.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much. And then the last question in the chat is from Christine. Good question. Is it possible to track people living in their vehicles on this platform? Is there a way to kind of integrate that component moving forward? Chris, can you speak to that?
So our individual in need reporting form does have some specific questions to vehicles. We don't track individuals. Our end of things is a little bit more enforcement related. So we don't do a lot of tracking of individuals. That's more of the outreach side of things. We are looking into trying to incorporate more of that, but the individual need reporting form does have the option to let us know if someone's associated with a vehicle. In the future, the encampment link probably will also have that. There are a lot more restrictions on enforcement when someone's living in a vehicle. It's treated more like a home. So it's a whole kind of separate set of codes that dictate that, and it's a little more tricky on our end to do that. But it is something that if there is an encampment and there's a vehicle associated with it, you could throw the license plate, vehicle description in the additional details tab, and we're happy to have that information.
Yeah. Christine, anything to add to that question? I see you've popped on.
I do. Thank you. I think this is just such a wonderful platform and such an asset for the community in terms of helping us to identify, areas where people are habitating. And Chris, I don't know if you know that we operate the Safe Parking Program, which has an area of expertise with working with people who live in their vehicles. And gosh, it would be super helpful to be able to get referrals or to get notifications from this system that says, hey, here's a cluster of people living in their vehicles, or hey, here's somebody you've noticed, because that would allow us to go out and do outreach. At this point, we don't literally get any, information with regards to anybody who's identified through this system. And I think that would be, there has been an increase in people in their vehicles. And I think this would be a really great tool for us to be able to utilize in terms of being able to, identify people in their vehicles and take that off of the plate of people who are working with encampments and street outreach, because A, again, we have the expertise, and B, there's plenty of work for people to do. And I think it would make sense to have us focus on the people that we have an expertise in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Christine, if you can message me privately on the chat with a good contact email, we can definitely start making referrals to your organization when we get reports about a vehicle-related report. Absolutely, 100%.
This is Liz jumping in. Christine, I'll work with you on getting something like that. Chris and I will work with you on that.
Fantastic. Thank you, everybody.
Great. Awesome. I'm glad this kind of synthesis is happening on this call. It's one of the awesome aspects of having this wrap call. And then I also want to raise Larry's question in the chat of how do we, how will we continue to help folks access this link? How has it worked in the past? I know Chris on every wrap call puts these links in the chat. I know it's at some point been used on Nextdoor. Any other ways that this is pushed out? I also know it's available on the city website, which can be a challenge to navigate at points. Chris, any other thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, you can find it on the city website under the how do I and then report sections. It can be a little challenge to navigate. We are rolling out soon with a new city website. I don't know the exact timeline, but we are working on our end to make sure that the reporting functions for what we manage is going to be much more simple. It should be a one-stop shop. So for example, we just have that new link that I put in the description, and all 3 of our reporting sections are all in that one landing page. I would also see when the new city website does get rolled out, there definitely will be a lot more outreach and publicization of that. And that'll include our reporting links. But you can also just Google, City of Santa Barbara and CAMET reporting, and the city website should pop up. But that link I put in the chat, grab it, save it, use it, favorite it. That's going to be your best bet.
Great. Thanks so much for that, Chris. And Larry, maybe there are other opportunities that you might know of. He's talking about publicizing. So again, like what Chris said, I think just to highlight Larry's further question in the chat, publicizing, press releases, media contacts. I think when that new website is rolled out, that will be a fantastic opportunity to really lift this link and lift some of the other links that are available. I know the homelessness response directory that we've talked about a lot over the past couple wraps, with all of the links of who to call, what to say, and what to expect. That link is also available on the city website. And so hopefully when this new website is rolled out, the ability to actually really publicize that will be available.
And I would say share the link with your friends.
Mhm.
Send it out. Let everybody have it.
Absolutely. I think sharing it with your networks, because each of you lives and works in these neighborhoods and knows your neighborhood a little bit better than maybe we do. I know I live on the east side, so I see the east side and I'll use the link, but I'm not always around town to be able to use these links. So sharing it with your networks is an incredible way to, one, allow folks to know how to help someone. If they're driving by, being able to report somebody who needs outreach or needs care it's an incredible way to do it. So please do, continue to share with your networks. To keep us on track, we've got a couple more agenda items. As always, if you've got questions or just want to know more about any of these resources, you can feel free to email me. I'll put my email in the chat. I know Chris also has made himself available for ongoing conversations and emails, just to continue talking about data, and we'll be able to share a data report next month as well, I believe. To turn it over, I want to turn it over to New Beginnings. Both Sarah Grasso and Christine Schwartz are on this call. To be able to share a little bit more about the safe parking program, a little bit of an update about vehicular homelessness in our community, and ways to assist folks. So I'll pass it over to you, Sarah and Christine. Do you need the opportunity to share a PowerPoint at all? Awesome. All right, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I'm trying to find my unmute button. Thank you so much. Let me just pull up my information for reference here. Okay. Yeah. So I don't know how much everybody on the meeting knows about safe parking, but so the really brief overview is that safe parking is a shelter and rapid rehousing program in Santa Barbara County that serves to provide shelter for people who are living in their vehicles and to connect them to housing through a intervention called rapid rehousing. And to do that, we have resources available for rental assistance, financial assistance, vehicle repair assistance, all sorts of things. And we have operated the program since 2004, and the program is considered to be the the original program for managing, working with people who live in their vehicles, and is replicated throughout the country. And it's a source of pride of Santa Barbara County, and one for new beginnings. And unfortunately, the number of people living in their vehicles is increasing, not just in our county, but nationwide. And we all understand the struggles that exist with regards to affordable housing, and then with the eviction moratorium lifting and all of the other COVID related reasons why people are finding themselves without housing, we're finding an increase in the population. Specifically in our county, in the 2020 point in time count, there were, 1,223 unsheltered. Of those, 33% were living in their vehicles. In the 2022 point in time count, there were 1,373 people, 35% living in their vehicles. So there's a 2% increase in people living in their vehicles in this most recent point in time count. And in general, the population is significantly undercounted because they're mobile, and they tend to go to places where they can not be found. So it's difficult, even in the point in time count, which has a broad distribution, to find people who are in their vehicles. So we can pretty much assume that the number is undercounted. So we're looking at a third of the people in our county who are homeless, who are living in their vehicles. The population in general tends to be people who are a little bit more functional than people who live on the street. They obviously have a vehicle and some amount of income. Probably 30 to 40% have employment. Many are disabled. Many are chronically homeless. It's a somewhat unique and interesting population, one that has unique needs because they live out of their vehicle. And again, it's a population that we have developed an expertise to serve and to address the unique case management issues that arise as a result of people living in their vehicles. Currently in South County, and South County includes Santa Barbara, the city of Santa Barbara, the city of Goleta, and the unincorporated areas in between. All of our lots are confidential, so I won't identify the lots, but we have 155 spaces and 25 lots. The way that we approach the program is that we distribute the impact of the program. So we don't have one big parking lot packed with 75 vehicles. We have many parking lots with a few vehicles, again, to distribute the impact, but also to allow for people to be able to remain in their neighborhood and in their community and go to their schools and go to their doctors and go to their jobs and the places that they have been connected to for years. And we have operated the program, for the most part without incident for its entirety. We have currently 56 total spaces available, which is unheard of prior to COVID. We had as many as, more than 100 people on the waiting list. When COVID happened, a lot of things changed. A number of people who were in the program either became housed, fortunately, or moved out of the area. And what we're finding is that newly homeless people who are in their vehicles have a couple of reasons why they're not seeking shelter. One, they don't want to be connected to any kind of government database. There isn't the incentive or the motivation in terms of being asked to not be on the street. Again, because of COVID, and law enforcement is a little bit more lenient, understandably, given COVID. And so people aren't, don't need as much to be able to park in spaces. And quite frankly, we have a lot of newly homeless who've never accessed social services before. So they don't even know that such a thing exists. We've been talking internally about how do we reach out to these people. And I was so excited to see this platform today because that's a great way for us to be able to identify likely newly homeless people who have never accessed resources before. Yeah, so, and then in terms of the spaces, the majority of the spaces are available are either for RVs or are spaces that are on the periphery. So again, we have the lots all over the place. And there are certain lots that are sought after because of their location, and those tend to be downtown in Santa Barbara and in areas around Santa Barbara that are located near services, as well as in the city of Goleta. And the spaces that are on the periphery aren't as highly utilized. So while we have some available spaces, we still really need downtown parking lots. We desperately need to be able to find more lots in downtown Santa Barbara and downtown Goleta so that we can accommodate the people who have those needs. In addition to wanting to be close to where they go to school or where they work, we all know that there's, a huge increase in gas prices. And so if you drive an RV or a vehicle and you have, very little income, spending, a third or half of your income on gasoline is not something that you're inclined to do. So, all of these are impacting the shelter part of the work. We continue to work with people who, are living in their vehicles through our rapid rehousing programs in order to get them housed. And they don't have to be in the shelter in order for us to be able to work with them to do that. So oftentimes we find when they come to us or when they're referred to us for the rapid rehousing piece, then they feel more comfortable going into the shelter. And so sometimes it's a reverse process. Let's see, just looking to see if there's any other notes I have. Just in general, we could really use help with locating more lots downtown, up on the Mesa, in the city of Goleta, and Isla Vista and UCSB is a whole other conversation. It's very difficult to convince local business owners to embrace this kind of a program, and any connections or any ideas would be greatly appreciated. And then I think that's it. I'm sure there's probably some questions. Sarah, am I forgetting anything that we've talked about?
No, I think you gave a really thorough overview. I think maybe the only thing that I would add is the program strives to match people to lots that will serve their needs. And so logistically, from one lot to a next, the kind of geographic distribution of where the vehicles are parking might look a little bit different. There might be closer proximity to certain resources depending on where the lot is located. And so case managers that are doing, enrollments in the program really work with clients to make sure that they're matching them with a lot that will meet their needs and places them in a, area in the city or the county that allows them to continue to access the services and, other things that they've identified that are important to them. So that's why I think you might see a higher utilization with some lots comparatively speaking to other areas or other lots.
And then, the issue with oversized vehicles and RVs is again sort of a whole other issue, and there's resistance from that population as well.
Thank you both so much for that incredible overview of all of the different work that you get to do. I want to turn it over to folks if you've got questions or comments. I know one major need is lots and spaces in which to park, but how could, if folks, some of the folks on this call see vehicles every day, how could they refer individuals living in their vehicles to the Safe Parking Program? What's the best avenue for folks to be able to do that?
I think just our phone number, but Sarah, did you want to?
I think, I would say it's just as simple as shooting us an email or making a phone call. I really appreciate a lot of the information that comes along with a referral. So if there's different things that have been observed, or if it's another, outreach provider that knows a little bit more about the individual and their circumstances, like that's really good information to have. That often helps us engage and make that initial contact. So yeah, calling, I can put my information in the chat. I'll put my number and my email. You're welcome to reach out to me. You're welcome to reach out to our general program line, which I'll also put in the chat.
Great.
And, what's really helpful is timely referrals for this population because of the mobile nature of the population, right? If we get a referral a couple, 3 days after somebody sees them, they're long gone. And we have staff who routinely go out and try to outreach to people who, when we know somebody's in their vehicle, but they're, more often than not, they're already gone. So, that's why this platform would be really helpful, because if we could somehow get pinged immediately, then we could make our way out there.
Awesome. Thanks so much. I want to open it up for questions. If there are group questions, or if you have a question that you want to throw into the chat, please do.
Is my volume on? Can you hear me?
Yeah, go
This
ahead,
is my
Barbara.
first Zoom from here. Christine and Sarah, so there was an uptick, obviously, in the number of individuals and families living in their vehicles for the city of Santa Barbara, according to the point in time count, by only 13. I think our perception is that was much higher than that, of 275, which is disproportionately more than any other jurisdiction. Is it just because of population density and the housing shortage here in Santa Barbara, or are there more reasons for the city having, the highest number of that population?
It's all of it. I mean, well, the services are located, the majority of the services are centralized in downtown Santa Barbara. And I can't emphasize the gasoline part of it enough.
Yeah.
It's a significant expense for people who are homeless. And we give out gas cards and do all sorts of things, to help people supplement their income to address that. But that's a big expense. And then there's also, without getting specific about it, but there are different resources that people use for showers and meals and different things like that. And those tend to be centralized in downtown. And then, yes, the housing is much more difficult in Santa Barbara. The housing is much more expensive in Santa Barbara. So there's a lot more, focused employment in Santa Barbara. It's all of those reasons.
And just from experience in terms of most of folks living in their vehicles are employed, employment opportunities, they want to be close by to that too, correct? We get a lot of questions about why that number. And I think, again, expecting that it could increase exponentially over the next few months, if not year or 2 years, what we could plan or prepare for or even mitigate in regards to that. So of the 56 open available spaces, how many spaces are open here? None? Are those countywide? And do you have an estimate of the number of spaces that would be needed in downtown Santa Barbara?
The spaces that are open are in South County. We're only focusing on South County for this presentation. And in terms of the number of spaces, I mean, it's very strategically in different parts of town. It's great to be able to have a lot that can accommodate 5 to 15 different spaces. And we need lots up on the Mesa. We need lots in the Isla Vista area. We need lots along Cabrillo and that whole sort of downtown corridor area. There are locations where we really need, where we have overflow. And so we need to target locations in those areas. And we don't talk about the locations, but we can, if anybody's interested, we can have that discussion offline. Absolutely. And yes, the numbers are going to increase. Think about it in terms of if you were, if you became homeless, right? If you lost your housing, if you lost your job, if whatever happened, and you have never been homeless before, the likelihood that you're going to go to a shelter, especially if you have a dog or a pet or a lot of belongings that you're afraid to leave on the street, people are going to car camp, right? And they think, oh, okay, well, I can go here and take a shower, and I can go here and do my job, and nobody will know, and I'll get back on my feet, and that'll be great. And prior to well, prior to COVID, prior to coordinated entry, prior to a lot of things, rapid rehousing used to be an intervention where we were able to target people who were in that kind of precipice of, like, falling further into homelessness or just needing a little bit of support to get back into housing. So the model's changed now in terms of we help the most people who are the most vulnerable. And as a result, there isn't as much funding for people who are kind of newly homeless and not so vulnerable and not chronically homeless because they're not perceived to be of the highest need. So those people are scrambling to figure out how to get assistance, and they're the people who are living in their cars, right? And, if there's any foundation people on this call, I mean, one of the things that would be really helpful would be to have funds to help people like that, right? And I think a lot of the CARES money that came out, after COVID, were helping people, with rental assistance, but, all of that's being, has been depleted. So, we're going to see people like that, and it's how do we catch them and get them the assistance that they need and get them back into housing before they fall further into homelessness. And that's why, ways of identifying them quickly and bringing them in and helping them with the resources that we have is really important. And, the previous, again, before COVID, the way that we used to advertise to clients is everything is different now. There's like very little paper and there's very little, just everything is different. There's different, people don't, gather in ways that we would be able to share information like that as much anymore. So we really have to try to be creative, which we're doing internally, but we're open to hearing any creative and innovative ways of reaching these newly homeless people in their vehicles.
Thank you so much, Christine and Sarah, for really speaking to that and some of the specific kind of nuanced ways that this population experiences homelessness, or the ways that folks enter homelessness maybe first in their vehicles before entering street level homelessness. I know that these needs are incredibly specific to this particular population, even though there's a spread obviously within the population of folks experiencing vehicular homelessness. But thanks again for speaking to that specificity. Are there other questions for Sarah and Christine, other ideas for maybe creative ways to outreach? I know some of these folks work on the waterfront or live on the waterfront and maybe see vehicles every day. Are there materials that folks could have at the front desk of their hotel or the front desk of their business if they wanted to be able to provide someone living in their vehicle with that kind of information?
We do have a program flyer that we're able to provide to businesses or other providers. And that is actually what we use when we go out and do outreach and can't make that physical contact. We do make sure to leave a flyer on the vehicle, kind of maybe refer to it as going out and papering or doing flyering and, making people aware of the services and how to get connected to them. So happy to share that.
Yeah.
One of the sad, things that came up recently, we were talking about this, and I said, oh, why don't we, post flyers in such and such a location, because we know that people utilize that who are living in their vehicles. And the response was, if we do that, we're going to out them. And the likelihood that the businesses will, go, oh, hey, wait, we don't want, homeless people, using our facilities. So we're going to shut that down. So it's it's a delicate balance, right?
Definitely. Are there other questions for Christine and Sarah? Awesome. Thank you so much again for jumping on this call, for the thoroughness. Oh, go ahead, Lizzie.
Yeah, I'm sorry. That was a clap, but I meant to do a hand raise. Sorry. So the last comment you made, Christine, of businesses will want to shut it down. I think that may have been the truth maybe 3 years ago, but the real truth now is that there's nothing businesses can do to shut it down, because we can't ask folks in vehicles to move if there's nowhere to go. So I think what would be helpful, I mean, we have somebody who's been living in a vehicle literally in front of one of our guest rooms. The guest room door opens right to the vehicle. for several months. And we're trying to figure out how to work with that. It's been difficult because this person doesn't want to engage. I actually had one engagement with him where he didn't yell and curse, but it was because I was asking him for help with something. So, but I think if there was a way to help businesses effectively engage, so that, I mean, we understand there's nothing we can do, but even if this person didn't park in the red, maybe parked just a few feet up so that the front door doesn't open to his window, just something that we can work with. That would be helpful. And I think, coming from a business, I think that if we saw something like that take place, my guess is that more businesses would be willing to engage in this process to be part of the solution. Right now, we feel helpless, and depending on the situation, sometimes we feel ignored.
Well, and this is really good. This is a really good discussion. And, please, if you have a situation like that, even if people aren't our clients, reach out to us and we will be very responsive. One of the things I think the city of Santa Barbara can attest to is that when we get a call or a request or feedback and saying, hey, this is happening, it needs to be addressed, we're on it. And if our contact information is in the chat. If you encounter something, or if you want to sit down, or you want us to reach out to somebody, just call, because we will be very responsive, and we appreciate that we have to navigate through this together so that people feel comfortable.
My experience with this person is both New Beginnings and CityNet responded right away. I think the day that I emailed, they responded, and then they came back, but this person doesn't want services. And so now we're at a dead end. I'm still hoping that one engagement just last week, where I asked if he saw somebody that, was causing shenanigans, and because he didn't curse at me and yell at me, it kind of made me go, oh, maybe this is that first step that, we can just ask him nicely to just move up 2 feet. And that would really make a difference for us. But when they're not willing to, or not in the state of life that they are able to take services, that's where we feel stuck. Because yes, you have responded right away.
Well, and again, you make a really good point, and that sometimes it takes, multiple touches for, a case manager, a caseworker to be able to connect with somebody, because they're afraid, they're leery, they don't necessarily trust people, and or they're cranky, or whatever, right? And so it often takes many touches, and having that very specific information allows us to be able to go back and say, hey, gosh, if you could do this, and maybe we can come to some agreement on something else, right? So it's a dance. That it's a process, right? And I think that's one of the things that I don't know if community members or business owners know, and it sounds like you are more educated than than some people, right? Is that it really, there is a lot of resistance, and it does take a lot of manpower to be able to work sometimes with just one person to get them to, be open to assistance. So if you can contact Sarah, or Sarah can contact you, and we can find out specifically more about this person and do much more targeted intensive outreach, I think that would be a good thing.
Great. Wonderful. Once again, kind of the gift of this platform and the gift of this call is to be able to make these connections and engage folks in that ongoing outreach. I think that's maybe a theme from today, is these particular mapped regions. If we can, the more that those links are used and pushed out to your networks, and the more that connections are made through this call, folks will actually receive the outreach that they need. And then multiple angles can be taken in order to really, one, address impacts on the neighborhood, as well as on any given neighborhood as well, as well as connect folks with much needed services over time. Because maybe that first time somebody is hesitant and doesn't want to talk and gets mad at you, but it might take several touches before that's possible to really get through that often tough exterior. I want to be mindful of our time, and I also know that Lynn and Brian both had to jump off, so I want to just quickly highlight some updates from the volunteers and policing program. I might lean on you, Charlie, a little bit for some descriptions of that program, but just in short, hopefully at our next all-call meeting, we'll be able to have members from the volunteers and policing program share a little bit about their program, how it works, and their experience with it. But Jeff and I had the opportunity to meet the whole group of VIPs this past Monday and do a little bit of a training and just a conversation about homelessness and some of their hopes for engaging folks on the street and how they want to build out that program. I believe there are 10-ish volunteers currently in the program, and we've been talking with each of the RAP regions in order to expand street presence. The VIP program is indeed a volunteer program, so folks don't have necessarily a set schedule, but we know that each region would benefit from greater outreach presence as well as just general street presence, folks that have a plethora of knowledge about resources that are available, and the VIPs can be that. And so we've been talking with each regional action plan to, if you are interested or if you know someone who would be a candidate for this program, to be able to volunteer any level of amount of time. There's both volunteering in the form of just general street outreach, walking the street, talking with people, kind of an extension of street presence in that way. There's also opportunities to volunteer at the station, watching footage. So whatever might be your interest or someone that you know, please do let them know about this opportunity. And what we're trying to do is recruit 10 volunteers from each RAP region, or around 10, so that folks who live in each individual region can then volunteer in their neighborhood, because we know that there are so many folks that attend all of these RAP calls that care deeply about their neighborhoods and that want to play a role in the betterment and well-being and health of their neighborhoods, as well as folks experiencing homelessness in their neighborhoods. Charlie, anything that I missed about the VIP program, please do feel free to jump in, as well as we'll have Lynn and Brian on the call to speak to it a little bit more, and we'll continue talking about some strategies. I'll also put the link to apply to the program in the chat for you to share, but go ahead, Charlie.
No, you actually did a really good job kind of summarizing the program. So I won't do that all over again, but yeah, our VIP program is fantastic. You're right. We have about a dozen VIPs at the moment. We're looking to actively expand that program. It was kind of on hiatus for a bit during the COVID time, but we're bringing it back and bringing it back strong. So being a VIP is a great way to get back to the community, to get involved with a bunch of different functions through the police department. Like Kayla had said, everything from foot patrols to lobby hours to working parades and special events to helping the investigative division with surveillance video footage, like gathering and looking through different forms of evidence to help out in casework. So there's a lot of cool stuff you can do. Very diverse team at the moment, looking to expand it. You would apply for it just like we would for any other position at the police department. There's a background check that's associated with that as part of our standard practice. And then if you pass that background, then we'll put you through training in a variety of different areas, get you a uniform, and then get your radio and out working on the street or wherever else you would like to work. So thank you for highlighting the program. And again, hopefully we can get Brian and Lynn on a call here shortly to give you some firsthand experience as to what they think of the program, how they feel it benefits our community.
Thank you so much for jumping in, Charlie. And just one last thing that I would add, in our conversation with a lot of the VIPs this past Monday, a lot of them just shared a desire to know more about the resources that are available, so that when they're talking to folks on State Street, on the waterfront, they're able to better provide resources. So they have neighborhood navigation center cards. I'll be giving them quite a few more handfuls of those cards so that they're able to use them on their outreach, interfacing with folks, to refer them to other resources. So I know that is an element of the program that exists and will continue to expand over time. So again, in our last minute, just want to say thank you to all of you for joining us for this all-call RAP meeting. We hope it was informational and helpful as always. If you have follow-up questions, comments, concerns, please do reach out to me. Most of you have my email, so I will let you go for the rest of your Wednesday afternoon. But again, thank you so much and have a good one.
Thank you so much, Kayla. Bye-bye.